Hi there, welcome. Welcome to Homekeepers. How are you today, my friend? Hope things are going well for you and for your family. This is really going to be a great program. I stay amazed after being on the air this long how God keeps sending us these wonderful, wonderful guests. And I know you enjoy them because you tell us you do. My guest today, Dr. Timothy Jennings, you might have heard him on the last program because when he came in, I sat down and taped 3 interviews with him. Could have done 10 very easily. He's the author of The God-Shaped Brain, and we talked a lot about the brain on the last program, and we'll continue to do so today. I was thinking King David was just talking to the Lord one day, and he just was extolling his greatness, his creative powers, and he said, you know, you made us fearfully and wonderfully made. And the more science gets into some of this information, you find out that that is so true. Fearfully and wonderfully made by the Creator God. Well, on this program, we're going to talk about your concept of God. Now, this is very, very important. Sometimes you grew up in church, but you don't have a really good concept of God because you were flooded with legalism and all. But it's very clear God loves you. And Dr. Jennings really has a gift to bring this out. Now, let me say this. Sit down, okay, and listen, because he pours out so much information, and you want to be able to concentrate on it if you possibly can. Then I'm going to join Stephanie. We're going to make lemony, scallops, spinach pasta. Doesn't that sound good? Sounds like a perfect meal to me. And before I do join her, though, I want to again remind you we are viewer-supported. I don't spend a lot of time asking for donations, but that's the way we can stay on the air and bring you these wonderful guests like Dr. Jennings. So I've said it many times, but we get new viewers all the time, so I'm going to repeat that when the Holy Spirit kind of nudges you to give to a ministry, it's a good idea to go ahead and do it. And if that would happen across the board, every ministry would be taken care of, just following the leading of the Lord. Hope you'll do that. You can use your credit card or debit card by calling 1-800-229-0059, or you can write to me. We love getting your little notes and things. And Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758. And thank you in advance. So here's my friend Stephanie. We talked about scallops one day, didn't we?
This makes me laugh, and I have to tell my scallop story again. I have butter in the pan. I'm going to put garlic in the pan, and then we're going to put some scallops in here.
I want to say one thing.
Yes.
The audience who watches regular, they know how hard you try to watch the pennies and balance the budget, and now we find you, your husband, your daughter, and her boyfriend celebrating her birthday in a kind of a nice restaurant. Take it from there.
So we go to this restaurant, and my husband and I are always a little budget, thinking. So we're like, let's split an appetizer, and then we'll both get an entree. So we're like, okay, cool. So we ordered scallops, and they brought the plate out, and there was 2 scallops on it. 2.
For $13.
For $13.50. And they weren't like nice, big. They were this size. Mm-hmm. They were little, tiny scallops. Mm-hmm. We just looked at each other and laughed.
Yeah.
Because what are you going to do? I go, okay, we both get one.
Adjust the budget. Yeah.
Yes. So let me get these scallops in the pan. I love scallops. I mean, they're so good. That's why we thought we would share an appetizer
When
of
that
them.
happens, you might as well go ahead and enjoy it.
So I know I'm just not made for fancy. Just not.
Now, I've never bought raw scallops before, but they were about $14 a pound.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. So I'm paying $13.50 for 2.
This is a half a pound.
This is a half a pound. So what in the world?
Were they about that size?
They were this size, yes. So it was
I guess a scallop is a scallop.
We had a 1-bite appetizer each. Mm-hmm. That was what we had. Thank goodness they had bread on the table.
You didn't share one with your daughter.
The scallop? Yeah, no. But they did have bread and oil and stuff like that, so that helped a little bit. But like the entree, we're thinking, oh, okay, well, we can take some of the entree home. Yeah. No.
Right.
They were small, little, tiny entrees. So, lesson learned. Lesson learned, okay? I'm gonna put a little, the recipe doesn't call for it, but I'm gonna put a little bit of salt and pepper on these and just flavor them up a little bit, okay? So you just cook these for a few minutes till they're opaque. Then we're gonna put lemon juice and lemon zest. We're gonna put spinach, and then you have angel hair pasta, which is my least favorite pasta.
Oh, is it? What's your favorite?
Just spaghetti.
Oh, just the regular
Yes,
stuff?
yeah.
I like angel or linguine.
I like linguine, but well, I think angel hair is my least favorite because my dad's spaghetti doesn't go very well on it.
Oh.
Like it's just not, it's not enough sustenance for that.
Well, tell you something else about Stephanie. She loves Christmas, and she has a sign outside of her door of, let's
The
see,
countdown,
it was about
yes.
130 days when you put it out
When
there?
I started, and now we're down to 78.
78 days.
Yes. And it kind of annoys people around here, so they like to make fun of me on Facebook. So one of our coworkers, who will remain nameless, posted on Facebook yesterday a little comic about somebody like putting their hand over the mouth of somebody who was talking about Christmas and making them go to sleep. He's like,
Oh.
shh, shh, shh,
Yeah,
okay,
right.
go to sleep now. So I gave him a little meme.
Yeah.
So we're just making
Oh,
sure
I
these,
kind of like her sign. Just go by and you know exactly how many
you know
days.
how many days. So it's coming. Why not prepare? Yeah.
Well,
Okay, so let me put some spinach in here so we can get
as we
that
make this
wilted down.
program, it's October, so
Yeah.
knowing you, you've probably got most of your shopping done.
I have a lot of my shopping done. I don't want to stress during the month of December. I want to be able to enjoy the holidays.
Do you want the carrots too?
Sure, why not? We're just wilting this down. Oh, hey. I'm going to go ahead and put the lemon and the lemon zest. There's nothing like fresh, and this was fresh lemon juice.
Yes, and especially with anything
And lemon
seafood.
zest. Oh, and then all that lemon like oil was coming out of the zest this morning. It smelled so fresh and so good.
That's a pretty dish.
This is going to be really, really good. And you could
colorful.
make this. So the scallops were like $7. Okay, so this whole dish was less than my appetizer with 2 scallops.
I don't think she'll ever get over that.
I don't think I will. It was just hysterical.
Well,
I
you
mean,
know,
we just laughed.
My mom lived to be 100, and she's been gone about 10 years. But they lived through the real Depression.
Okay, I'm going to give you,
And she told
this
me,
is not nearly done, but I'm going to
Yeah.
give you a little taste.
she told me one time during the Depression, she lost 65 cents and hadn't gotten over it yet. She said
It's like that when you're trying so hard.
it would have bought a dress, she said.
Yes,
Yeah.
when you're trying so hard. You're trying so
Now,
hard.
do you think that scallop's done?
No.
I'm not going to eat it.
I know.
She gave me a raw scallop.
Well, it's for looks, okay? You think it's done? Okay, Susan thinks it's done.
Yeah, they do.
Here, let me see.
She's the
It's
scallop. Is it good?
lemon. Oh, those are gritty scallops. Wow. All right.
You've probably seen the first and last time you'll have scallops on this program.
But I'll keep talking about it. No.
Okay, information on this is coming up. If you want this recipe, we'll send it to you. After that, Dr. Timothy Jennings, you're going to love what he has to say. Stay with us.
If you would like a copy of today's recipe, you may receive it by contacting us through social media as listed on the screen. When requesting a copy through the mail, be sure to include a self-addressed stamped envelope. Thank you, and please know we always appreciate hearing from our viewers.
Okay, Dr. Jennings, on the last program, we were talking about, and I guess we could use the word damage of a lot of Christians were raised in churches that really gave them a negative view of God, and that he was waiting to catch them doing something wrong, or that he just didn't like them. And did you ever struggle with anything like that?
So yeah, I was actually raised in a church that was also very authoritarian, rules oriented, and you were often living in fear of breaking the rule and getting in trouble of some kind. Yeah, and so the data shows this is what drives kids out of church.
Right.
Yeah, And it has to do, I'll tell you the core. If people want to try to drill down into something that they can be very predictable to tell the difference, ask the question, how do you understand God's law? Do you see God as creator, and his laws are the laws upon which reality are built? Law of gravity, law of physics, laws of health, and the moral laws are all design protocols. Or do you see him functioning no different than a human being, a sinner? And we can't build reality, so we make up rules that we threaten to punish people who break our rules. Now, just that alone, you step back and think, how do I see God? If I break his law, is the problem like breaking the laws of health, smoking cigarettes, I'm actually damaging my health? That's the problem. Or, well, there's nothing wrong with sin. It doesn't hurt you. I'm just in trouble with the man in charge, and he'll use his power to punish me. You see, this is the big divide in Christianity. Much of Christianity sees God as actually the being they need to be protected from, rather, and I tell people, they're more afraid of God who's trying to save them than they are of sin in their life, which is killing them. And so when we come back to see God as creator, then we understand that deviations from his design or laws actually destroy us. They kill us, and God is working through Christ to heal us. That's the gospel message, and that's the big divide between much of what you see in religion.
And he addresses this in this book, The God-Shaped Brain, and we'll have the website up. You can go right there and learn more about this ministry, and also you can find out where to get books. I'm sure they're at Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all those places.
Yes.
Okay, now, back to a God that's not so friendly. So how do you help that person? They probably still have a fear of God, and they,
It's so deeply ingrained, people, and maybe our listeners are doing this, yeah, but what about the Old Testament? What about the Old Testament, okay? And I say to them, you have to understand what's actually happening in the Old Testament. See, God does use for children, like parents use for children, certain rules that they won't need when they grow up. For instance, most parents have a rule for their children not to play in the street. And if the child disobeys and plays in the street and fortunately doesn't get hit by a car immediately, the parent will then implement an parent-imposed consequence, perhaps a spanking. Now, if we go to the child, from the child's mind at that age, what's the problem with playing in the street? Well, mom or dad's mad. And where's the pain and suffering come from? Pain and suffering comes from mom or dad. No, but that's not reality. See, mom and dad love that child so much that they're willing to step in between them and reality and allow the child to perceive that the pain and suffering comes from the parent when it actually comes from breaking the laws of physics when they get hit by a car. But they can't comprehend it yet. And when they grow up, they go, wow, mom and dad was never the problem. They were protecting me. This is the Old Testament. When you look at the Old Testament, God threatening over and over again, he steps in and allows himself to be viewed this way because they don't understand that you worship a golden calf, you sear your conscience, you harden your heart, you warp your character. They're about to run over a cliff and kill themselves in paganism, and they don't get it. And so God steps in and allows himself to think he's the problem, but he's not.
So what about that precious sister sitting on the couch right now watching this, and she's had a really negative concept of God. I had one, you did, but I know, I've learned he's a God of love. Everything about him is loving.
So I would suggest, what do you base those perceptions on? And when I do this in my practice, so many people come see me with this, and as they start telling me what those perceptions are based on, every one of them is based on some misunderstanding of the evidence. Touchstone, where you can go if you want. Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. The Father and I are one. So any view you hold of the Father, you should go to see the life of Jesus. If you don't see it happening in the life of Jesus, then it's a distortion about how you see the Father. When did Jesus actually beat up the adulterer? How about his betrayer? How did he do? Well, he washed his feet. Wait a minute. That's the Father? How did he treat people who were spitting on him, punching him, and crucifying him? Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. You've seen me. You've seen the Father. You see, when you understand design law, you don't have to inflict punishment on people who drink 2 bottles of vodka a day. You don't have to inflict punishment on people who smoke. You don't have to inflict punishment on people who take a noose tied around their neck and break the law of respiration. That's a lawbreaker.
Yes.
You don't have to punish them for that. You have to deliver them from it. That's the real gospel message.
Aren't we just a fear-ridden nation?
Yes.
I know when I lock my doors at night, I go around them a couple times, and there's so much violence, there's so much just hatred, and it's spewed on TV, it's everywhere. I never heard the term road rage when I was young. And so this creates fear in us.
So neurobiologically, in our brain, when our love circuits fire, they actually calm and turn off our fear circuits. But when our fear circuits fire, if we choose to embrace the fear, focus on the fear, identify with the fear, it actually impairs our ability to love. When you're really frightened, you're not thinking of someone else, you're thinking of how to protect yourself. So as soon as Adam and Eve sinned, they ran and hid because they were afraid. Perfect love casts out all fear. They're inversely proportional in our motives. So the devil is constantly working in society to undermine anything that will cause us to love something more than self. And inflame our fears. And so, you know, the big three values in our country historically have always been God, family, and country. All three, something bigger than self, worthy of our self-sacrifice. Sacrifice for God, sacrifice for family, sacrifice for our country. But in our society today, the message is given, there is no God, families are broken and dysfunctional, and the message to the young people is our country is not to be trusted. It's abuser of the minorities and the poor peoples of the world. And so there's nothing more than you. You're the most important thing in society now. And that only makes you more fearful. There's nothing more sacrificing. You don't fire your love circuits anymore. And then the messages from the media are constant fear into global warming, food shortages, war with Iran or North Korea, and on the fear-inducing messages go. And the more fearful you get, the more self-centered you get, the more narcissistic, the more willing you are to hurt other people to protect yourself, the less love we have.
That's good.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's like you're putting all the pieces of the puzzle together.
And Jesus said in the last days that the love of many will wax cold.
Yes.
Love is waxing cold in our society.
Well, when you look at the church in general, and it's pretty easy. I mean, we got a lot of media. We got TV. We got churches on television, and all. And how has the message changed? Is the church taking the message of the world and trying to put a couple of scriptures on it? I say that because I remember every president since Roosevelt. I remember the end of the Second World War. I was very young, but I remember some of the newspaper things. And more recently, we've seen pictures of these were kids that were storming the beaches of Normandy.
Yeah.
Several thousand didn't make it. They were kids, 17, 18, 19 years old. Now we have these feeling-laden young people in our colleges who needed Play-Doh and safe spaces and
Yeah, but notice that
because they didn't like the election.
Yeah, well, but notice where the focus is. See, in World War II, even though they were young people, the focus was on the country and serving others. Do you understand that a young person, an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old man in World War II who had a physical health problem and was not allowed to join the military became depressed and often suicidal? Okay, it wasn't draft dodging. They were they just the opposite, because they had a value of greater than self.
They'd lie about their age to get in.
Right, but today the value is nothing is greater than the self, and so we have just the opposite of what you've described going on now. I need my safe space. It's my rights. You have no right to wear a certain hat with a certain political logo on it because that offends and hurts my feelings, and it's all about me. So self becomes the center, and when self becomes the center, then love is crushed out of our society. And that's really what we see happening. Love is growing cold. And you talk about in the church.
Right.
You know, I think within the church can look and see injustices in society and rightly desire for them to be eliminated and for us to become a more godly society. But here's a truth that people need to recognize. We cannot win God's cause by using Satan's methods.
Say it again.
We cannot win God's cause by using Satan's methods, meaning we cannot achieve God's goals by using the principles or methods of the world.
Right.
You can't change hearts and minds to love more people by using political solutions. That's why there's terrible political and human rights violations in Palestine when Jesus was here and in the Roman world. But the focus of Christ and the apostles was a message to transform hearts, not to elect the right governors in Palestine. or the right senators in Rome. Now, that doesn't mean in our government you vote your conscience and so forth, but the real passion is to love people. We talked in our last section about the law of exertion. If you want something to get stronger, you must exercise it. Okay? You want strong math ability, you got to work problems. If you want strong capacity for loving people, you actually have to love people.
Yes, and there's
You
a lot
can't
of them
pray
that-
about loving people. You have to love
That's
people.
the easy part, is to pray about
I mean,
it.
you do pray, but you can't stop with prayer.
Yeah, and some of them are not very lovable.
Right.
You're looking at an old pastor's wife.
Okay.
And there's some very unlovable saints.
And we don't just love our family. Jesus said, love your enemies.
Oh, that's tough.
And that does take prayer. Lord, give me a heart to love my enemies, but then you got to decide, how do I love my enemies?
A lot of this, I'd like to hear from our pulpits. A lot of this, because it's such right-on theology, there's no question. If you just joined me, this is my second day with Dr. Timothy Jennings. He's a psychiatrist, and we're talking mostly about the God-shaped brain. But let me mention also the aging brain. And people are living a lot longer nowadays, aren't they?
And that book, the key to that book is Proven Steps to Prevent Dementia. What we know now, the Alzheimer's form dementia, the late onset, if you make the right lifestyle choices, you can avoid it.
Okay, and that's the aging brain. And as we mentioned, you can get these anywhere you can get books, but Amazon is pretty fast, and so is Barnes & Noble. And the God-shaped heart. Do you want to give me just a quick explanation of this?
This is about growing in a Christ-like heart, growing to be like Christ in character. That's what that book's about. The first book is about how our beliefs change our brain, change our physical health, okay? And they are, of course, overlapping because we are a tripartite being. You can't grow physically to be healthy doing godly things without affecting your heart and character too. So they do overlap, but it focuses more on how we mature in our Christian journey, become, in the image of Christ in mind, heart, and character.
I've often said we try so hard to live our Christian life this way. Oh, I love you, God. And he's saying it should be horizontal. That's the hard part. That's where he can give us the power, and where we've got to be absolutely willing to let him change all these patterns that we have been using in our brains.
And the method for that, the Holy Spirit is the Spirit of truth and love. Okay? And as truth comes into our minds and we assimilate it, it actually becomes building blocks of ideas, beliefs, constructs that win us to trust. And as we want to trust, we open the heart and the Spirit comes in. And there's a supernatural element that begins working. We get new desires. We get new motives. We get new discernment. And we grow in grace as we are lovers of truth.
And really, I really do recommend this book because he brings this all together. It makes so much sense. It's so biblical. It is so right. Now, I was listening to one of your lectures. I guess it's on YouTube or somewhere.
They're all over the internet, yeah.
Yeah, this one was, you were in Australia, I think.
Yeah.
Yes. And you said that volunteers do better as adults and they live longer.
Yeah, that's actually good epidemiologic research. This is the law of love now. Okay?
Yes.
We talked about last time about the integrative evidence-based approach, okay? God's law, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and neighbor as yourself. There's scripture, okay? The science is the principle of beneficence or giving. This is how God built life. Every breath you take, you give away carbon dioxide to the plants. The plants give oxygen back to you, a never-ending circle of giving upon which life is built. That's the law of love built right into nature. And then altruism, giving of yourself. This is the experience side of that tripod. And when you volunteers who give of themselves and help, when compared to non-volunteers, after accounting for variables like smoking and baseline health, they live longer, they have less disability, less dementia, less depression, stay out of nursing homes longer than those who don't volunteer. So the law of the Lord is perfect, bringing life or reviving the soul.
You know, we're seeing some of that today. As we're making this program, we're still experiencing Hurricane Dorian, and it has left the Bahamas. It looks like a war zone. But there are thousands and thousands of volunteers ready to go, ready to help the people in the Bahamas. And with all the bad news we have, it's so refreshing to know that there's a lot of good people in this nation. They don't get any attention.
Yeah, no, there are a lot of good people in this nation that really do help others.
And they are coming together. Okay, I
But see,
think
okay.
No, go ahead.
I'll say, but see, the news media doesn't want to focus on the love.
No.
The news media wants to focus on the pain, the suffering, the disaster, and they want to incite fear. So when you watch the images on the news media, primarily they want you to feel a visceral sense of threat, to make you feel more unsafe in your society. Because when we can make people feel fear, we can then manipulate them to go along with policies that ultimately give up liberties so we can feel safer.
Oh my goodness, that is good. I'm so glad the Lord sent you to us. I mean, He's clarifying a lot of things for me, and we're out of time. But He'll be my guest again tomorrow, and I want to give you a little preview of what I want. I listened to you tell a wonderful story about a bride and the mother of the bride. And the mother was scared to death to walk down the aisle.
Ah, okay.
You know that one?
Yep.
Okay. He'll tell us that on the next program. So you stay with me. He'll be with me on the next one. And I have a couple of things to say before we have to say goodbye.
Arthelene would like you to keep the following information handy. You may contact Homekeepers by writing to Homekeepers, P.O. Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida 33758, or go to www.rippy.org. Remember, we always enjoy hearing from our viewers, and we thank you for your support.
Okay, I mentioned at the top of the program that we are viewer supported. I'd like to remind you again that you can use your credit card with the 800 number, or write to me at the address on your screen. I have a feeling that after you've heard this rich stuff that we talked about, that you might see the importance of supporting a program like this. So thank you very much for anything that you can do. And I just wonder if a lot of you that grew up in various types of churches, as Dr. Jennings was talking, did you see yourself anywhere? Because he was talking about some of the concepts we get of God that are so negative, and we can carry them all through our life, but He doesn't want us to. He's a God of love. He's not a God of fear. He's not a God that's out to get you. And sometimes church preaching or the Sunday school teacher, something can give you that thought. So I hope He cleared a lot of that up for you today, and you're going to enjoy tomorrow just as much. So until then, please remember there's no higher calling than that of a homekeeper. God bless you.
If you should miss a Homekeepers program, you can catch up by going to www.ctnonline.com. Click on CTN Programs and then on Homekeepers.